everyone, it's Jen, and I'm going to show you how to create a Google form. Now, Google Forms can be used for all sorts of great stuff, including customer satisfaction surveys, employee feedback, signups, training and product evaluations, marketing quizzes, applications, all sorts of stuff. And also, they are great because they automatically collect data for you, so you do not have to go ahead and do all sorts of data calculations. They'll go ahead and supply that for you and collect all the information in a Google Sheet, which is fabulous. So you're going to go ahead and create this form for this tutorial. I supply you with this image in Canvas. You'll create your own title here with your name, of course, and you'll enter this description, and you're going to use 3 different types of questions. The first is with checkboxes where people can check off multiple answers at once. And you'll also see that there is a multiple choice, which is different because you can only select one answer, like yes or no. And then you'll see that we'll also create a scale question where we can rate something from 1 to 5, excellent or in need of improvement. So I'm going to go ahead and check off 3 right there. And then I could go ahead and submit this and my submission would be done. If you'd like to go ahead and practice filling it out, you can do that with the link from Canvas. If you've not already, be sure that you've headed over to Google and you can go ahead and get a new form by going through your Google Apps here. You can head to your Google Drive. That's one way you can get a new form. And if you would like to save in a folder you've already created for class, that's a great idea. I have one that's called Cabrillo, and then I have a subfolder called Cabot 100, and I'm going to go ahead and click on New to see the menu here. Now you'll see here what you've used most often, so you may not see Google Forms if you haven't made one most recently. So you can head over to More, and if you see it under here rather than on this main list, you can start from there. Under Google Forms, you're going to go ahead and start from a blank form, although they do have lots of different templates, which are fun to browse. So let's go ahead and start with a blank form. When you start with a blank form, the first step you're going to do is title your form. Go ahead and insert your last name and first name, and you could go ahead and title it Sample Client Form or Client Survey, something similar to that. I'm going to go ahead and label this with the year for myself. And here's a fun trick. If you've entered the title here and then you just click in Untitled up here, it will automatically transfer the title and you do not have to copy and paste it or enter it again. The next step is to put in a form description. You can see the form description for this particular tutorial inside Canvas. We're going to enter the text, "At Navarro Dentistry, we want to ensure that you're getting the best care to fit your needs. Please fill out the short survey below so that we can customize our clinic." It's important to include a form description and keep it brief so that people can know what they're exactly filling out and if there are any restrictions or rules around filling out the form. The next thing we're going to do is get started on our questions. Now you can see here that I have an untitled question, and we're going to enter the question in the first instruction that's in Canvas for you. This one is about which days and hours will most likely people want dentist appointments. And you'll notice because we mentioned days and hours that conveniently Google Forms will go ahead and put in the days for us. However, we want something a little bit different because we have specific categories and times that we'd like to figure out about because we're hiring staff and scheduling staff, and we want to make sure that our clients are taken care of. Because I want to make sure that clients can go ahead and select multiple options, it's a little confusing because multiple choice sounds like there should be multiple options allowed. However, I want to allow them to check off many options. So I'm going to change this question type to checkboxes. And you'll notice that the boxes will turn into squares rather than little radio buttons or circles. And then I'm going to start putting in my options. Quickly before I put in my options, I want to add a little description to make sure that the clients know that they can check off any options that apply. And Google Forms used to have automatic description area here. However, now you have to activate it. So you're going to head down to the three dots here and check off description, and then you can go ahead and put in some sort of instruction like check off all that apply. Now we're going to go ahead and begin adding in our options. Because we want to customize this a bit to our schedule, the first option is weekday mornings. Then I can go ahead and click below to add another option and put in weekday afternoon. Now I've entered in all my options. I've got weekday mornings, weekday afternoons, evenings, Saturday mornings or afternoons, Sunday mornings or afternoons, Saturday evenings, and Sunday evenings. And you could see that if I wanted to go ahead and click and drag these, I could reorder them if I wanted to, or if I had put in an option that I want to delete, I can go ahead and click on the little X to remove it. So if you have extra options in there that you don't want, you can go ahead and edit this. And you can edit this further even after you've published the survey, which is really helpful. Now let's move on to our multiple choice question. I'm going to scroll down a bit here, and I want to add in a new question, and your bar may be on the side or on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and hover over this plus, and it lets me add a new question. And the question I'd like to add is, if Navarro Dentistry offered new non-toxic teeth whitening services, would you use them? You can see that the suggestions that we have here kind of work. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add all because I've got yes and no. And rather than maybe, I'm going to go ahead and put in my own answer, which is I'm not sure, I need more information. That's going to be our maybe instead. And of course, you can always modify this if you like to have, periods at the end of your answers so that they all are consistent. You can do that. And you can see that multiple choice was the automatic selection here, so I didn't have to change it to multiple choice. Now I'm going to zoom back a tiny bit here by doing Control minus, and you can see that my form is starting to build up here. I've got my questions, and I did just want to point out that if I did want to reorder these questions, I could click and drag them up and down. I don't actually, but just so you can see that they can be reordered that way, just like the question selections can be. All right, I'm going to add my third and last question to my short survey. And I'm going to click on the plus here, and notice now that I'm zoomed out that my plus is over on the side before I had it on the bottom. And I'm going to add a scale question. So I'm going to change the type to linear scale. And there are some other choices here, grids and multiple choice grids and drop-down menus and paragraphs and short answer. And you can play around with all of these, date and time. They're all super useful. In this particular tutorial, we're going to do these 3 question types for your project. You'll go ahead and get to try some other types. So I'm going to click on linear scale. And I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see better. Scroll down. And here I can choose my scale. I could make this up to 10. I could have it start at 0. You can play around with it. I'm going to stick with the 1 to 5. And what I'd like to do is rate this clinic overall. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the question, overall, how do you rate your experience at Navarro Dentistry? Then we want also some descriptive text to tell the clients exactly how to fill this out. So again, I'm going to need to add a description here, and I'm going to put in pick one number, 1 being excellent, 5 being in need of great improvements. And of course, if you wanted the scale in reverse with 5 being the best and 1 being low, of course you could go ahead and change that. Now I've created my scale. I've put in that excellent is for 1 and 5 is in need of great improvement. And now I'd like to see what this survey is going to look like. So I can head up here and I can get a preview of it. I'll go ahead and click on this little preview here. And it looks rather plain right now. It does have my questions. There's my scale. There's my multiple choice. And there are my check boxes. And you can see all the questions are required because I left that on there. And because I am the editor, I get a little pencil here back on the bottom, which allows me to go back and edit. If I was wanting to submit it, I could submit it there, but I'm going to go back and edit it some more. Next, I'd like to go ahead and make it look pretty. So the first thing I'm going to do, I could go ahead and change the theme. So it looks like a little paint palette at the top, and you can see your choices of different colors you can choose. You can also see how this changes things. So for example, let's say I change it to green and apply, and you'll see that it will give a light green background and a dark green border. However, what we're going to do is upload an image, and then it will automatically choose colors that kind of match the image. So go ahead over to the theme options again. And you can also modify your font style here, but we'll keep it basic, which is much clearer. And we'll click on Choose an Image. It's taking a second to load, but what you'll see is there are some stock photo images that you can choose from. So you've got lots of different choices here that Google supplies for you that you can choose from, and they are also designated by different types of categories. So if you're looking for food and dining, you'll see this. And something that's interesting about some of these is that they actually have motion with them. So you'll see, for example, this one, the flames are flickering. If I chose this, you'll see the glasses are sparkling. So that's kind of fun. But we want to go ahead and stick with our logo. Which would be the most appropriate. So we can upload an image and click to browse or drag the image here. If you have photos that you have already uploaded, you can click on the photo tab and see the photos that are there. So for example, if you use the company logo or another image frequently, you don't have to re-upload it each time. Otherwise, you can click and drag the downloaded file from Canvas. I'm going to go ahead and select this image and click on Insert. Once I click to insert it, it will allow me to go ahead and resize it if I would like. So for example, if I wanted to crop it a bit, but I do not in this case, so I'm going to go ahead and click Done. And it may take a moment, but then it will load that, and you'll notice that once it's been uploaded, if I click apply, it will go ahead and put it at the very top here. I decide that I'd like to further adjust the background to match the colors of my logo. So I'm going to go back in and select a nice kind of deep blue and apply that. And that kind of goes a bit more with our color scheme of blue. And I'm all set. Now that I have created this, I can again go and preview it, see how it looks. And it's taking a minute to load my image, but that looks pretty good there. It's got all of my setup, so I'm happy with that. But now I'd like to share this. there is either a send button, or you may see, depending on which version you have, you may see a little paper airplane. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this opens up your send form window. Now this can be kind of confusing because you essentially have 3 tabs across here. Um, at the very top, you're allowed to collect email addresses. If you check this off, it will automatically select the person's email to be inserted in the form data. Then with your 3 tabs, you could either email this to specific people. You can select a link here. You can get the URL, which is how you're going to submit it today for your assignment. If you'd like to shorten the URL, it will give you a short URL rather than that huge long one. And last but not least, this third tab of the window is the embed code. Now, this is kind of fun if you would like to embed something in social media or in a website. This will allow you to go ahead and paste it in. And later in our class, you'll actually get to try that out. You'll get to embed some things in a website. But today you're just going to go ahead and select that link and copy it, and that is what you're going to submit. And now you have created a Google form. Now I'd like to show you how you can collect your responses. So you'll notice here that you've been editing in the question area. You can head to the responses area and you can see that this form has no responses yet. You can also turn your form on and off. You can decide to view your responses in a spreadsheet, and I'm going to go ahead and show you that in a moment. So you can see my previous form that I created, which was just the same, that I already have 64 responses. If I go ahead and click here on the responses, I've had students pretend to fill this out, and you can actually fill it out too from the link on Canvas. You can see here that I get an automatic little chart made, and I have the responses of people who were interested or not interested in our new teeth whitening service, and people who are satisfied or dissatisfied. Now I could go ahead and also view this in a sheet. So I'll go ahead and open that in a sheet. And you'll see that these responses have been filled in throughout the years, all the way up till 2021. From 2017, of course, you'd be able to see the dates. You'd be able to see the different responses here and the ratings. And you, of course, could take this data and do all sorts of calculations with it if you would like. And getting all the data inside a sheet allows you to go ahead and use it in all sorts of other purposes. So that was creating a Google form, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.